No news typically means good news, but it could also just mean nothing at all.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today, we are going to go over the latest happenings in updates on the Jacob Markstrom trade, as well as reviewing his time as a Flame and another mock trade presented by another Locked On host here, or Locked On show, since it was two hosts. That's going to leave you a little speechless, and we're going to dive into all of that right now here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. But before that, make sure you are subscribed wherever you're getting your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. It's still sounding like New Jersey is the front runner. The people who are reporting that that's the case are the ones that are typically reliable sources, your trusted sources. But I also just think it's important to consider your sources when you're also looking deeper below the surface level, because it's a whole lot of nothing sometimes. And right now, there are no real updates. Like, I haven't seen Chris Johnston tweet or put out anything besides yesterday's update. So I'm like, I don't really buy into it all that much. So don't put too much stock into things. But there were some reports that, earlier this year around the trade deadline, that Alexander Holtz was going to be the player that was sent back to Calgary. Alexander Holtz is a forward that could absolutely, benefit from a change of scenery. I think that, it's one of those circumstances where the player just isn't meshing well with the team's style of play or the environment, whatever the case may be. So, and he has potential. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not, one of these situations where it's like, oh, you're just giving us this player because you don't, you don't value him. There are definitely some trades where it's like, okay, you just absolutely just threw this player in there because you had to. I do think that Holtz is really one of the younger players that definitely would mesh well in the Flames organization, simply because Ryan Huska is adamant about letting players, play to their strengths. In past years, we have seen coaches relentlessly play players on their off wing when that's not what, it's their off wing for a reason. And, trying to place this one on this line as a center when they haven't touched, the center position since, Pee-wee hockey or anything like that. Like, Huska has made it a point to elevate players. And I think we have seen that with Yegor Sharangovich. He was getting a lot more ice time, a lot more opportunities. And even when Kuzmenko came in, we saw him jump right in on the power play and see immediate success. And that's fantastic. That is what you want to see. And what you see from the other team isn't always what you're going to get. I mean, clearly, you look at Jonathan Huberdeau and you look at him here versus in Florida, and you just, that's that. But it, they're really not sure what this package is going to entail. Just that it's sounding like it's going to get done before the draft, which I mean, that's 2 weeks away. If I'm looking at my calendar correctly, let's see. So today is June 11th. Yeah, it's about 2.5 weeks away. So there's still time. I mean, something could happen while I'm recording this, and then I have to scrap the whole episode. But regardless, Elliot Friedman is talking about how. Actually, let's rewind for a second. There's no certainty that Alexander Holtz is going to be involved in this package now, which, okay, um, then what is? And that's where you're just kind of left with the shrug of the shoulders, because there's a lot of unknowns there. And I mean, to be frank, I don't know the Devils prospect system at all, so I don't know like who they could pluck from Utica, I think is where their AHL affiliate is. But regardless, Elliot Friedman says he hasn't heard that there's been an official trade request from Markstrom, but he's inclined to believe there has been. So that's that. I feel like, truthfully, Calgary lost a lot of leverage by not pulling the trigger back in February, March. And they have to do it now. They don't have much more time to waste, especially if this is going to involve 2024 draft picks. I think they need to get a move on it. And I hate saying that because I have thoroughly enjoyed Jacob Markstrom as a Flame for the most part. So, but we are embarking on a new era of Calgary Flames hockey, and this is just the beginning of the rest of our lives. So we're gonna take a quick break here, and when we return, we're gonna talk about the Jacob Markstrom era in his time as a Calgary Flame. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick break here and talk to you about FanDuel. Let's see. Okay. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Right now, it sounds like the Celtics are going to be down a very significant player in Porzingis for Game 3 in Dallas. So maybe you bet on Dallas. You take the money line there. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Thanks for making the show part of your day. I appreciate it. Off season's long. We still have a while to go before we even sniff Flames hockey. So I appreciate you making Locked On Flames part of your day. Jacob Markstrom signed with the Flames in the 2020 offseason. So it was after... So it was 20. So he finished the 2019-2020 season with Vancouver. Admitted that he took less money in Calgary to be a Flame rather to be an Edmonton Oiler. I do wonder where... I don't want to think about it. You know what? The Oilers are in the Cup Finals. Flames enjoying their time on the golf course. But he's had a pretty decent time. I mean, I would say, obviously, we know that the 2022-23 season was not, we would like that wiped from everyone's memory if we could, really. But that was his worst year as a Flame. Every other year, he has posted an above 900 save percentage. 904 the first year, 922 the year he came in second for Vezina trophy voting. And to me that year, like, I know, like, my parents, like, they always talk about, like, the glory days of, like, their favorite sports team. To me, that 2022 season, like, that is something I will tell my children about. Be like, "You don't know what good hockey is. You didn't watch Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk put up 100 plus." No, they didn't. But that was one heck of a season. And Jacob Markstrom played out of his godforsaken mind that entire season. And he did great in the playoffs too, except against the Oilers. So really just one round. That first game one of that second round against Edmonton, I was convinced that the Flames were just going to walk right into the Western Conference Finals. But anyways, back to Jacob Markstrom here. He had 9 shutouts that year. He has had 15 shutouts in his time as a Flame. That's more than he had in his 7 years in Vancouver. He had none in his 4 years in Florida. So that's a lot, you know. Good for him. I think that Markstrom is one of those goalies that if he could start 82 games a season, he would start 82 games a season, which is a problem because you obviously have your workload management that you got to work in there, and you got to can't ride your goalie into the ground. We saw what happened the year after Markstrom started 63 regular season games. He appeared in 59, and let's see what I'm trying to find that. Appeared in 59, had a .892 save percentage with a right below 3 goals against average. And obviously those are just like basic stats. They're not the advanced stats. And he was one of the worst when it came to goals saved above expected. Yes. And he was just always in the red category. It was not a good time to be a Jacob Markstrom defender. Nope. A horrible time. But he did bounce back this year. I will say, I think his bounce back this year felt a lot closer to his Vezina year, simply because of how bad he was last year. Obviously, it's recency bias. If you have a bad year and you bounce back, well, obviously it's going to feel a lot like your best year because that's what you have to compare it to. And for Markstrom, I really do think that he is a workhorse. Like I said, he is competitive. He wants to go to a contender. So he is not going to a team like Ottawa or Chicago. I traded him to Chicago in NHL 24 last night, but that's not real life. And I just have a very hard time imagining another dark horse coming in, and that's a contender that needs a goaltender that can match or beat Jersey's offer and get Markstrom to waive that no movement clause. Now, I think he would pretty much waive that for a handful of teams at this point, more than he would back in February and March. But again, different time. This season, I'm trying to, okay, so he had 2 shutouts this season. I felt like he had just one. But anyways, if I had to use one word to sum up Markstrom's time as a Flame, I'm going to say good. Or I'm not even good. I'm going to say competitive. I think that Markstrom went out there every single night and did what he needed to do. Granted, you have that one outlier, but he really did the darn thing. He did a lot. I don't think there are many goaltenders that are willing to just, to do the work that he does. He plays like Sergei Bobrovsky all season long. Playoff Bobrovsky needs to be studied. But I do think that he since he holds himself to such a high standard and is such a competitive player, he has to do that. Otherwise, he's not playing up to his standard, and then that's when the mental games kind of come into play. I do really wonder if these headlines now don't bother him as much because he's not being asked about it every day in practice or post-game scrums, things like that. I mean, those headlines are going to get out there regardless. They're to be reported on, but I don't necessarily think it's his main focus right now. I think enjoying his time in Sweden and his gorgeous new house that they built is probably the main focus, as well as just getting the show on the road in terms of maybe property hunting. Maybe he calls good old Tyler Toffoli and says, "Hey, you know any good New Jersey, New York State realtors? Because I don't." But I do really hope that Markstrom has a strong rest of his career. I'd love to see him win a cup. I think that would be spectacular. He is, like I've said 82 million times this episode, he is a competitive player, and he is a player that would just leave it all out on the ice. He would go out, like they would have to force him out of the game if it was his last appearance of his career. I think that he could be a good fit in New Jersey. I think, you can't have like this immediate reaction of, oh, it's going to go so well, because number one, you don't really know the kind of defense that New Jersey plays, and I mean, it's probably better than the last little bit they saw in Calgary, so can't be too much worse. I think it would be it would just be really interesting to see how that does translate, and I think that you got to give them a little bit of time to settle in before you start evaluating and jumping on things. But that is just my opinion. You aren't winning or losing a trade within the first month of it happening. So there is that. I do hope that Markstrom enjoys his off season. I hope that wherever we are when this trade happens, it is when I'm at home so I can jump on and record and give you guys a show immediately. But we have 2.5 weeks until the draft, so we will see. We will see if Markstrom's time as a Flame continues through the summer. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do 2025 draft picks instead. Who knows? But coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show with a mock trade from the folks over at Locked On Utah. Because, boy, oh boy, there's sure a lot going on there. But first, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back right after this. A lot of life is unpredictable, but a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for you and your family quick and easy. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online, and you avoid those unnecessary medical exams. Life insurance is so important because, like I just said, life is unpredictable. It's tough. And with Policy Genius's award-winning agents, you can have them help walk you through the process of buying life insurance step by step. Policy Genius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description box to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on today's episode of Locked On Flames. We are gonna go over this mock trade because it's something I saw it and I thought it was a lot. So let me pull this up right here. And if you are watching on YouTube, you will be able to see the screen. Okay, hello everyone. Let me take that down. Wonderful. So this is a trade presented to us by Locked On NHL in Utah. This is a 3-team trade involving Toronto, Utah, and the Flames. To Toronto would be Jack McBain and Jacob Markstrom, as well as Utah's 2024 and 2025 second-round pick. And to Utah would be Mitch Marner, and they would retain 50% of John Tavares' salary, and then the Flames get John Tavares. No. I do adore the folks over at formerly Locked On Coyotes, but that's just the Flames are not taking on John Tavares. Number one, there's no reason to. He doesn't. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy and he has, he is a good player, but there is nothing about the addition of John Tavares that makes me particularly excited. I don't know how else to say it. I feel mean, but I think that, Calgary is absolutely getting the short end of the stick here. Like, sure, they're only paying half of Tavares's salary for the next year, but there's just there's no incentive to add Tavares. They don't need another older guy. What they need are players like Logan Cooley or, that guy Juuso Välimäki that the Flames once had. I mean, there's a million players I would say the Flames need before adding John Tavares. Mitch Marner could, maybe the Flames are making the playoffs, so they don't have to worry about his playoff numbers. I think that this is just something that, maybe Toronto and Utah can work out, but the Flames, I'll call Craig Conroy right now and tell him to put that phone on airplane mode. There's no incentive, like I said, for the Flames. I don't. This, trading Jacob Markstrom isn't a salary dump. It's not a, we just, we're just doing this to move a contract, like Taylor Hall last summer getting traded to Chicago. That was to make cap space work. The Flames don't need to do that. The Flames are looking to add assets and, get some young blood that's either ready to go for the NHL or to, that's on the fringe that can probably benefit from maybe a season in the AHL. But bringing on a player of John Tavares' age is incredibly counterproductive. The Flames are not going to be a playoff team. Quite frankly, I don't think that they are going to I don't think that they don't need to do it. They need to get younger. And Mitch Marner, I mean, he's not necessarily old, but he's going to be probably at the end of his prime, those prime years, right where I'm at in life, that 28, 29 mark, when the Flames are going to be competitive again. I don't see a world where this is happening. And I'm just confirming Mitch Marner's age. Okay, so he's already 27. He's going to be 31, give or take, by the time the Flames are ready. No, you don't need that. What you need are your young prospects, your young draft picks. If you can trade for some RFAs and, get something cooking there and build from the ground up. You're not going to, did they not, Jonathan Huberdeau, granted they're not giving John Tavares a 7-year extension, but there's just genuinely no need for it. And I am offended that that's the return for Jacob Markstrom. No, I will stick with my delusion of 2 draft picks and a roster player, or a high-end prospect and a really good draft pick. I don't know. Sorry, everyone at Locked On NHL in Utah. Hopefully you guys have a name soon. Locked On Yetis would be cool. I don't see a world where the Flames are truly trading for older players. And that goes for any trade. They're not going to trade 28, 29-year-old Mangiapane to trade for a 28-year-old Mitch Marner, or whoever, that it does not make sense and is so off the path from the Flames' goals and from where they need to be and where they want to be. So let's stick to the plan. We're trading for draft capital, assets, and young roster players. Break. So that will do it for me on today's episode of Locked On Flames. I hope you all have a fantastic Tuesday and enjoy your summer. Let me know who you're rooting for in the Cup final down below. Like I've mentioned, I want both teams to lose. Although I do have a Matthew Tkachuk Funko Pop behind me. I hope he does well. I hope he succeeds in life. But other than that, it's never go Oilers in this house. Never. So make sure you're subscribed. I'll see you tomorrow. We will have a guest later on this week. So that's very exciting. We're going to talk more about prospects as well as who could be replacing Rick Ball. But until then, stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay hydrated, be kind, and I will see you all later.